Solo mining is the embodiment of the original dream, a defiant act of individual sovereignty where one person, one node, and one miner take a stand against centralized control. We don't just mine for profit, we mine for principle. We mine for ourselves and for each other and for the unyielding spirit at Bitcoin's core. Join us as we dig in and hold the line. This is the Home Mining Podcast. Hello and welcome back to the Home Mining Podcast, where we deep dive on everything open source development and Bitcoin home mining. I'm your host, Two Sats, and today we're talking with Mick of Geyser Fund, the platform fueling Bitcoin projects with community-backed sats. From open source dev and home mining tools to Bitcoin education and circular economies, they're making waves in the ecosystem. Joining us is Mick to break down how Geyser works, what's working, what's not working. So if you're a miner, dev, or just here for the Bitcoin revolution, buckle up because this one's for you. Mick, thanks for stopping in with us today. How are you, my friend?
Oh man, thank you so much. Really humbled by the introduction. Appreciate it. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. Thanks, man.
Great. Awesome.
Glad you could make the time to jump in with us. This is a bit of a unique one for our audience, but there's so many things. There's so many kind of carryovers and parallels between Bitcoin home mining and open source development and dev work in general, and what Geyser really is all about. Can you give us a little bit of sort of a quick pitch on what Geyser does and your background too? I'd be curious to know a bit about how you came up with this idea and how you got into the spot that you're in now with all the great work you're doing.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, and I'm really excited about this show because, particularly for many reasons, but I think in particular, and actually I should have mentioned this ahead of the podcast as well. But actually, we have a new upcoming feature that I think is going to be incredibly powerful for these types of projects like hardware and bit access. But I'll leave that to later. To start, yeah, I'm sort of a humble pleb. Actually, I'm not a technical pleb. I'm actually a designer by background. I worked in the tech space for some years. I worked in a sort of fintech labs and all sorts of ecosystems. And as a Bitcoiner, I wanted to. After a few years, my fingers started getting tingly, and I started saying, I want to get involved. Like, I want to contribute to this. Like, Bitcoin's given so much to me, has not only like intellectually, monetarily, but it has given so much that I wanted to kind of give back. So I was in a place where I was seeing how important the role of communities coming together could be in making great ideas happen and actually helping move ecosystems forward. I was actually, as a Bitcoiner, working for a startup that ended up pivoting to Ethereum of all shitcoins. So I was like in a really odd spot. But like, if there was any silver lining, was that I saw how important kind of crowdfunding was to this ecosystem to actually enable funding to developers and even beyond developers. And I thought, why is there no such thing in Bitcoin? Why, why not? And like, you have now Lightning in 2020, 2021, and it's like obviously the future of Bitcoin's scalability and enables Bitcoin to actually be used by anyone around the world. And so I thought, like, we need to bring these two things together: Lightning with crowdfunding to fuel and enable the Bitcoin economy ecosystem. And so I think when we launched, there was a massively positive reception. There's obviously a need for the community, these types of community projects. And also my background is in anthropology. I studied anthropology, so I'm a big believer in like the role and power of communities and culture. I'm very much also an individualist. I believe in the value of personal responsibility. I'm not a collectivist, why don't you jab yourself? Like, you're doing it, you're selfish individual. You have to do it for the community. Like, that's an aberration. But there's still a value in culture and the community coming together to support the ecosystem in general, especially in an ecosystem where Bitcoin was born out of an individual's gift, I think, to the collective. Really, like Satoshi gifted Bitcoin to the world. He didn't keep it all for himself, right? He let it kind of grow in a grassroots sort of way. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about the background of how I got involved in Geyser. Of course, my co-founder, Stadios, who, you know, we've been in this journey together, and then Sazal, another key team member. And now we're still a team of three. We went through some ups and downs. Now we're back to a small team, you know, trying to keep it grassroots, try to remain non-funded from the investors, just trying to keep to a grassroots approach like Bitcoin. Um, and so really just to kind of highlight what Geyser is a Bitcoin crowdfunding platform. Think of it as like GoFundMe and Kickstarter kind of put together, but using Bitcoin and on a mission to support grassroots Bitcoin adoption. And in our sort of terminology of grassroots adoption, you know, there is you know, Bitcoin adoption initiatives like Bitcoin, and I guess you could call them Bitcoin initiatives like Bitcoin education centers, circular economies, communities, meetups, these types of things that are receiving funding quite a lot on Geyser. And there's also Bitcoin products. Bitcoin products like Bitcoin tools are part of grassroots, are part of what made Bitcoin ultimately usable by people around the world. And then thirdly, you have causes like humanitarian emergencies. You have you know, like fundraisers, medical you know, issues that need funding, and so forth. So these are the three key pillars, and what sustains all of them is the Bitcoin community, and is this drive to see Bitcoin succeed, and through the use itself of Bitcoin. So now it's been a few years. I'm really super humbled and thankful for everything that we've done so far. And I'm really curious to explore this podcast because I do think that one of the key, like really narratives that have sort of arisen in the last year has been home mining, and I'm super excited to discuss this.
You know, I love what you're doing because I couldn't think of a better money or a better source of funding for so many of these initiatives than Bitcoin, right? And you're
Yes.
enabling that direct value proposition, right? That peer-to-peer exchange where you can just give directly to the projects that matter to you and enable instant, you know, gratification in the giving process and instant usability and value to the people receiving it. So it's an incredible thing that definitely was needed. And those are my favorite kinds of companies in the Bitcoin space. Are not all these like, oh, well, you can borrow against your Bitcoin companies and these stock companies that are issuing debt to buy up all the Bitcoin. No. For me, it's definitely something like what you guys are doing, where the founders, you know, want to basically push the ethos of Bitcoin. They know and believe in it, right? They live their life by it to some extent or another, and they want to help fund and push and navigate forward with Bitcoin as a medium of exchange and the adoption of it as well. Because from what all the things that I've learned in this space and all the people I've talked to, it seems that the lack of education is ultimately what leads to a lot of these great ideas that do get funded never really getting adopted or taking off to the level that they should, or like they have the potential to when you explore this idea. What what do you think is going on there? Is it just a lack of education in general, and that's why funding all these projects to improve education through things like Geyser campaigns, well, like the work that the people do through those campaigns, is that the key to helping some of these ideas flourish?
Right. Well, I don't know. To tackle it from a different perspective, we believe that everyone's a creator, so everyone has a chance to play a role in what is Bitcoin adoption, whether you're a developer or simply an educator. If you go out there and you ask people about Bitcoin anywhere around the world, probably still people have either a misunderstood uh, way of seeing Bitcoin or don't even know about Bitcoin at all, right? And as believers of Bitcoin as like the best money, and as like a tool that is more, Bitcoin is money, right? But it is being money, it also affects all these other elements of human civilization. So Bitcoin is good, so let's take people to Bitcoin. So I think that's why, and one of the key blockers to that is, well, one of the best way to explain people about Bitcoin is, unfortunately, the mainstream channels are really not available to us, right? We've had to fight with mainstream media for 14 years. And so the best way of showing and giving and showcasing trust around Bitcoin is through people. So people doing courses, people going out there, and sort of spreading the word of Bitcoin. And so you see this in, with programs like Mi Primer Bitcoin that just goes out and provides so much free, in many cases, education, and they've orange pilled and actually taught about Bitcoin and taught about money to probably in the hundreds of thousands of people, right? That's what we need, and that's what we need to scale. And if you think about it from this perspective, it is literally like it is the most grassroots that you can possibly get, which, if you think about it, is the most resilient type of adoption that we can get. If people know what Bitcoin, if you go to one of these courses where people are taught about what is money in El Salvador, they come out of these courses with a better understanding of what is money than any random person you'll find on the street in the Western world, which is incredibly powerful, incredibly empowering. So that's what we want. We want people to understand Bitcoin fundamentally and understand what money is fundamentally, so that we don't get rug again in 50 years, with a entirely custodial system of Bitcoin or what it is. So it's really important, I think, as part of the grassroots phenomenon, that we think about it holistically as being a problem of, yes, education, but also tools, right? And those two things really, really come together. So that's why it's super important, the circular economy projects that are happening in El Salvador, like Bitcoin Berlin, Bitcoin Indonesia, all over the world. And there's more than 80 circular economies on Geyser that have launched, maybe 90 now. And we are going to be releasing a report that highlights the impact and the value of circular economies, how they work. And by funding them, what we're doing is that we're accelerating adoption, right? If one of these projects gets a $10,000 donation, which happened recently in Japan, really with a project, well, that just accelerates the amount of adoption that can happen in a particular place. So by funding these places, it's not like Bitcoin is not going to happen. It probably will happen. Depends on how it happens and and how quickly it happens, right? So these are two variables that we can control. And we believe that through funding, well, we can make that happen faster. In fact, donations have been a key role of Bitcoin from the very, very beginning. One of the first email newsletters between Satoshi and Marty Malmi. I think Marty Malmi was the first receiver of a donation. Actually, ironically, in fiat, in fiat, he received it in his home as in the mailbox. And he received this donation that allowed him to actually start, I think, mining at home, and I think working on the open source protocol, if I remember correctly. So yeah, community funding is super, super critical part of the tooling that we have available to help accelerate adoption. And then that's sort of for the Bitcoin initiatives. And then the tooling side, again, there are so many tools out there. There's so much experimentation around new types of mining systems that are also funded and pre-funded, sort of pre-sold from the community. I'm really excited to talk about that.
I think we're back. Cool. Yeah, those are all great great points. And one thing that always really fires me up is when I see the things like Mi Primer Bitcoin and like the actual education that they're giving out is incredible, right? Like if you're a Bitcoiner, like this should move you on some level when you see the amount of knowledge that's being gifted, because ultimately that's a huge part of what keeps generations stuck, is not learning about money. How many people are afraid to talk about money? Like, you don't talk about money at the dinner table. You don't ask about money or how much someone makes or anything. It's such a foreign thing. But if you're ever going to understand it better and change the way in which it falls short and eventually, come to understand Bitcoin, like, you've got to have a conversation about it. So I love seeing that these generational patterns of knowledge, poverty, and lack of, understanding around all of these things is being evaporated. It's being erased. Hope everybody is enjoying this episode, the start of this episode with Mick from Geyser Fund. And there's a lot more to come, but we just want to jump in and thank our sponsors, Bitcoin Well, the best place in the US or Canada to stack sats in a fully non-custodial way on chain or Lightning. You can buy sats and have them sent directly to your cold storage, your Lightning wallet, wherever you prefer. Bitcoin Well does not custody your sats. And in fact, they've given us some sats to give away throughout today's episode and all future episodes. So let's jump into that now. Just have your Lightning wallet ready, and the first person to scan the QR code on the screen will walk away with the sats. If you were the lucky winner, drop a comment and let us know that you won the sats. And if you weren't, use the QR code that's popping up on the screen after the giveaway QR code to join Bitcoin Well and have your chance at winning 1 million sats in the Bitcoin Wishing Well. All right, here we go. We're going to redeem 500 points and toss a coin into the Bitcoin Wishing Well. And the first person to scan this wins 495 sats. We'll be back throughout the episode to drop a few more free sats on y'all. Enjoy. Let's jump into the meat of this conversation. I want to know how this all comes together when you start a Geyser campaign. What's one thing that Geyser does differently from other crowdfunding platforms, other than, you know, obviously the use of Bitcoin? But what do you guys do differently than other adjacent platforms that you think makes you kind of stay true to Bitcoin's ethos? And then break down how you ensure projects align with that vision. Is there any filtering that goes on y'all's part to accept a project, or, you know, what are those guidelines to make sure that it fits within what you're trying to fund and accomplish?
Awesome. Yeah, great question. So yeah, as you mentioned, we are a Bitcoin crowdfunding platform. So our primary differentiator is the use of Bitcoin, right? We are Bitcoiners building for the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so what that means is Bitcoin Geyser then becomes like Bitcoin global, right? It can be used anywhere. Now that is a big a big claim, right? Anyone anywhere could use Bitcoin, could use Geyser. The thing is, though, we're still a platform. We are incorporated in the United States, so we follow sanctions laws, and, you know, we also have our own internal set of like rules, and those are, we want to allow Bitcoin projects, right? We don't want to allow cryptocurrency tokens that will get people burned. We don't want to allow NFTs that will get people burned. We try to stay focused on the mission of Bitcoin and really focusing, like laser-eyed focus on Bitcoin adoption. And so we do apply some degree of kind of curation on what are projects that we want to allow on our platform. It took us a little bit to get there. Initially, we were like, yeah, let's let everything go. But turns out there's a role for curation. But I think one key differentiator that we are going to be, well, there's several different features of Geyser, and I think I'd like to say, you know, we have a great user experience. We're really easy to use. We make things social, right? So you can, you know, connect your profile if you want to. You can fund anonymously, and ultimately, it's all about, yeah, kind of building up your reputation and your sense of trust within the community. And that's what Geyser is good at surfacing. But the one thing that we are working on right now that we think can be a really major differentiator of Geyser that I think can empower a lot the existing community, and especially the BitAxe and the hardware community in Bitcoin, is that we're going to be launching Kickstarter like all or nothing, which is right now everything on Geyser is go straight to the creator, like peer-to-peer, sender to receiver. Geyser does not custody the funds. Geyser does not touch the funds. And that is beautiful, and that has a place, and that will continue to be there. But we're adding an extra functionality now of allowing you to launch an all or nothing campaign that can last between 1 day and 60 days. And the goal, you set a goal, and if the goal is achieved, well, you, the creator, gets the money. If the goal is not achieved within that set time, the funds go back to the funders. And that really just explodes and opens up all the possibilities, because all of a sudden, if you have a high budget, say with a new type of prototype bidax, worth, say, you have to spend at least $10,000 to just put all the pieces together. Well, you can now do it in a comfortable way, that now allows you to, as a creator, it allows you to say, okay, great, I'm only going to do this if I get the $10,000. And it allows the contributor to feel so much more comfortable to fund you, knowing that they're going to get back the money if you don't get to the goal. So that's going to be a major use case, I think, especially for the bidax community. We already have, I think, 5, 6, 7 bidax kind of projects. There's a we can go through in a bit, but we think this can really power the use case of new bidax projects. And so this is going to be under the hood. Geyser still remains non-custodial. We're going to be using smart contracts, rootstock smart contract, to make all this happen seamlessly. There's no shitcoinery at all. You only use Bitcoin. You send Lightning. You send from on-chain. It gets swapped into a smart contract bucket, and the funds are released back to the funders and to the creator based on like the outcome of the campaign. So really excited about how the community kind of will kind of respond to this and use this. But I'm really bullish about like the potential now for like the type of like the creativity and the infinite potential of all sorts of new products that are launching on Geyser.
I really like the all or nothing idea because when you're thinking about donating, like I'm sure, like as you donate to more and more projects, like you ascend up this ladder of like selflessness where you don't necessarily feel like amazing giving, like it's just routine for you. But when you're first starting and like you're picking your first project or two that you're like, okay, I'm going to give to this thing because it pulls on my heartstrings, or makes me feel something, I want to support it. I think one of the stumbling blocks as you're approaching that is the work going to get done, right? Am I just sending off my sats to somewhere in Africa or somewhere in Latin America or Asia, and I'm never going to see the result of that, right? And so I really do like the idea of, yes, giving the original way that you have it set up, but also then this thing where it's like, well, if this is such a great, bold idea, it's going to have a clear funding goal, and then it's going to have a timeline, and then we're going to see proof of work in action. And so I really do like that, and I think that will be a great marketing tool for people that are looking to actually take in donations and actually do the work, like people like my buddy Aaron Murphy, Murph's Life over in El Salvador, guys that are really doing the proof of work. Those campaigns are going to be great tools for them.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we are talking with Murph's Life. He's doing a really interesting, like Citadel type project. So excited to see. Maybe we'll partner with them for the launch. But yeah, if you're also building something and you're, on the edge, if you are able, if you can, if you think you're going to be able to raise the funds, well, this all or nothing feature, this all or nothing feature can really allow you to kind of put your idea out there, spend nothing, really focus on the idea, or very little on the sort of sale, and then you can really start working on it once the funds sort of reach you. And to your point, trust is everything, right? So trust, the way that we see it at Geyser in terms of there's like a funding equation. There's a funding equation to how much funding a project is likely to get. And there's 3 variables. One is trust and reputation. So the more trust and reputation, the more likely that people are going to trust you to do the thing, right? The second thing is the proof of work. How much work have you actually done towards that thing, that idea? If you want to make a film, okay, do you have a mock-up? Do you have not just an idea, but like a transcript? How close are you to actually getting there? And how much energy have you put into it through transcripts, through mock-ups, through, prototypes, right? That makes me feel comfortable about you doing it. Because maybe you have zero trust, you're a new guy, but you've gone so far in developing the prototype that makes me think this guy is, obviously mad into it. He wants to make this happen, right? So that's also really important. And then the third one is the impact. Like, what impact is this project going to have on the world? Does it have a strong vision? is it actually going to leave a dent in the universe, right? And that's also important. Maybe you have trust, right? And maybe you worked so hard on this thing, but like, it's negligible. It's not gonna do much. It doesn't go anywhere. Or maybe you have trust. You have, a really good idea, but you've done nothing to work towards it. Well, that doesn't leave me particularly excited. Or maybe you have no trust, but you have a really good project and you have a really good vision. Well, that's really good, but also, you kind of need the trust. And you develop the trust through time, right? And so all of these three things are all connected, and it's rare to find them all together. When you find it all together, you have Mi Primer Bitcoin, you have, Isabella, you have all these crazy projects that just go viral. And that's, yeah, that's sort of what we try to do, guys, is surface that and surface the trust where there is, remove the, make sure that the lack of trust surfaces as well when there isn't trust. And, I think the all or nothing, partly helps with that, especially if there's low trust, but there's a really good idea and a really good vision. It helps to like sure that, okay, even though there's no trust, there's enough funding to make it happen, but some minimum trust is still needed. So yeah, this is like the tricky thing about crowdfunding, and I think this is something that we're actively trying to improve. Like there's certain metrics and sort of indicators that can highlight degrees of trust, right? So there's, following on social media, there is Twitter, Nostr, um, but ultimately trust takes time. Trust is earned, right? It's not something that you can just give away and assume. But so it takes a little bit of so to put it in practice, like if someone has a really good idea and is actually working hard towards it, fund them a little bit, right? See what they keep doing. Keep seeing the proof of work, and then in time you'll be able to evaluate the degree of like trust that the project deserves, and that's not easy. And I think that's sort of the line of business we're in, and not yet, maybe yet, but something that we need to really explore, guys, and help to, yeah, sort of again, as I said, surface trust where there is, and help also the creators understand the value of proof of work, showing the impact, showing the work that they're doing, to increase their trust.
Yeah, showing that proof of work is monumental in like getting adoption. Speaking as someone who just donated a couple months ago to their first Geyser campaign, I wanted to make sure the contribution, my hard-earned sats, were going somewhere that was going to actually utilize them and not just sit on them for too long or use them for personal use. Or I wanted to see what is actually going on here because you might vet projects, but you can't necessarily vet the outcomes once the money is in their hands, right? And that's part of the beauty of all of this, and it's also one of the major potential drawbacks.
Yeah.
But you highlighted it great in your answer, which is Bitcoiners are notoriously hard to trusting group. Like it's hard to earn the trust of Bitcoiners, and it should be. But once it is earned, the support that you can get from Bitcoiners is beautiful. It's incredible.
True.
It can move mountains, right? But
I love
that's
that.
earned, and it's taken away very quickly because Bitcoiners, they just have this instinct to sniff out where they're being misled or not really getting the full scoop, and they go hard against it. So your proof of work is like your NPub, is like your reputation. It's very, very important. So I love that Geyser does that, what they can to ensure, transparency at every step of the way, not custodying funds, like all like seemingly little things or medium-sized things that all add up to make a really solid and reputable and trustworthy, third party or Bitcoin company.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. Means a lot. And definitely we tried that. We try to, there's sort of myths in Bitcoin that are, like there, yeah, it's a really interesting, thing. Bitcoiners are, like you said, a low trust. Bitcoin is a low trust money, right? It's a low trust money. So it's a really interesting, it makes building on Bitcoin really hard, especially if you're starting. Um, and hopefully in time we will deserve that, to grow our trust more and more based on our work. Um, and yeah, it's, we've been learning, we've been doing mistakes, right? we've learned the importance actually. So now a lot of the reputation also is social. So if you have a problem with a project, you can now report it. So we can, find out before, uh, you know, issues arise. And everything we do to ensure the, um, what's the word? Yeah, like like that our contributors are protected based on the value of the product. We're actually taking a lot more, as I mentioned before, time to curate the projects that are on there, while still allowing new nascent projects to emerge. Um, and so the best way to weed out again the bad actors are removing crypto people, removing NFT scams, and all these different things, and that goes a long way. And then in time, it's really about showcasing the proof of work, seeing, allowing, like giving people the chance, especially those in sort of in Africa and South America, to put their ideas out there and leaving this sort of low, um, this um, this level playing field for anyone to that has an idea to start and launch, which is I think really important. But yeah.
I think it's very inspiring and motivating for someone that does have a great idea. They can put it to the test and actively see whether it's the traditional way or this new way that you're talking about, where it's a limited time set goal target. Like, well, what is the demand for this great idea that you have, right? And if it is well supported and well loved, it will get funded, and that work will likely end up getting done, right? Whereas they always tell you in entrepreneurship and in business, that you have to know that there's a hungry audience for your product, right? You need to, it's a basic thing. You don't necessarily just build it all and then hope that people want it. You need to do some due diligence, right? And so this is like a filter. It's a filter to see if your idea is as hot as you think it is, and if it is, it will get a lot of love from Bitcoiners. And I think Geyser helps facilitate that and bridge that like link, right? It brings the trust. If it's on Geyser and it's getting funded, they're probably putting in proof of work and you can see real tangible results. And therefore you're more likely to want to pitch in to further that. And like you said earlier, really accelerate the adoption of these ideas, these tools, platforms, technologies, what have you.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Trust happens through the community. So there's a project recently who had, I don't know, 100 anonymous donations. Well, it's like, okay, if they're all anonymous, is that really possible? Versus a project that gets, 30% of them are like logged in users with credible social media accounts. And it's all about crowdfunding is so powerful when done right. And it's all through the collective, through this community coming together to make it happen. And this is another one of these myths, right? In Bitcoin, a lot of Bitcoiners say, "Oh, there's no such thing as a Bitcoin community," which is true somewhat. To some extent, there's none. In the long term, I think there's none. But in the short term, there is a group of people with a shared ideological makeup, with a shared set of beliefs, shared set of practices, going to conferences, beliefs, libertarianism, property rights. Coming together, right? Again, through these sort of conferences, meetups, and so forth. So we are a community. I'll definitely, happy to go to be saying something controversial, but there is a community, and and I think I heard another founder recently say that there is no more a community because it has broken up a lot. Right now, there's the Nostr people. There's like the MSTR, maxis. It's constantly evolving, constantly changing. And actually, you go to conferences, and a lot of people in Bitcoin conferences don't know like who Michael Saylor is sometimes, or they don't know Jack Mallers, or don't know Geyser, and so I think the pie is expanding like really fast, and the edges are now much bigger than the core on Twitter, right? It's very interesting what's happening, and in time maybe there will be no more core, and Bitcoin will infuse everything, and Bitcoin will seep into politics. It will seep into all sorts of religions. It'll become a staple of households across the world. But so that's fascinating. It really is an absolutely incredible phenomenon. But as a Bitcoin community of early adopters we are today, we have a role to play anywhere we are in the world to help Bitcoin adoption happen again in the fastest way possible, but also in the best way possible. To think and teach about self custody, to teach about the principles of property rights, and the revolution that is sort of this type of money, like the importance of hard money for enabling civilizational growth, savings, growing through savings rather than through consumption. There's so much that it can teach us. And for it to become a long-lasting revolution, we need to really take it at the grassroots level. And that's where the BitX, comes in. And that's where, although when I tell people about BitXs and they ask but how much of an imprint does this have on the entire mining uh, like net rig network? Well, not much, probably less than 0.1%. But that's not the point. The point is it's a movement, it's a cultural movement that has the potential to have some technological uh, really repercussions. Like we're seeing mining solo mining tools that are even more powerful, right? Like the gamma the gamma was an MVP, right, of where this can go. So I don't know. I'm curious, and I love your thoughts. You probably know even more than I do about where mining can become as a sort of grassroots. You know, can grassroots really have a powerful, sort of make a statement, not just cultural, but actually power statement to the mining powers that be.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to happen tomorrow with the amount of hash power that's cumulatively out there. But if enough people get on the network, absolutely. I mean, we've already seen solo blocks being mined, and it's not just one fluke time. It's happening more and more frequently in 2025 than it did last year in 2024. So it's happening, and they're getting a BitX, and then the next thing you know, they're upping their BitX to a higher model, or they're getting a NerdX, or they're looking at getting an old S9 or a heat bit or something like that, where they're going to use that for Bitcoin mining heat reuse and heat their homes and offset the cost of heating their homes and maybe stack some KYC free sats that way, right? So, if 1% of the comfort heating market switched over to Bitcoin mining heat reuse, we'd add an extra 2 zettahash to the network. And we're at 1 or just under 1 zettahash globally right now. So that would be a monumental impact. And that's at 1% of the comfort heating market coming over and using Bitcoin mining heat reuse. So I think that's where you're going to see a lot more residential, commercial, mom and pop adoption. And that will help. That combined with the amount of BitXs and mining to your own node, right? The importance of owning a Start9 or an Umbrel, right? Mining to that node, exploring things like Ocean, Pool, and really starting to understand what you're doing. It's not one BitX plugged in. It's, 100,000, 500,000, a million plebs all taking that self-responsibility, that self-ownership, plugging in, mining to their own node. And yeah, that's going to make a huge impact over time. Also, when you're not consuming industrial power rates and needing to produce a end of quarter profit, like some of these big mining companies, they're gonna suffer in the bear runs potentially. But you mining at home, you're gonna keep mining at home because you're doing this for your own reasons, right? You're not beholden to some shareholder. So I think that's another thing that people should consider, is that you're able to just keep running your BitXs, your NerdXs, your S9, your S19 Slim. There's so many home options now that you don't have to turn them off, and you're resilient to things like bear markets more so. So I think it's going to make a huge impact. Just going to take quite a number of years, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a long term, and it's really just started, right? It's a really recent um, system, a sort of a movement, I'd say. And yeah, agreed with everything you said.
Yeah, very new, right? We're only starting to now see some of these heat punk conferences and ideas about residential heating, snow melt, using the miners, heating pools. We're just at the very, very early stages of
Yeah.
this, and as these machines get better and better, more powerful, hydro cooled things like that, it's going to make a huge difference in adoption. I think it's hard to get people to spend the money on like a home mining device when they're on the outside and they don't have any experience, which is why a BitX is a good education tool. And then people can go further. But I think the real killer app, the real killer use case will be the heat reuse over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and what's really cool about this is that anyone can play a role in it, right? Anyone can pick up on this idea, and if you're a designer or an industrial designer, you can, create models and like do your research and start launching alternative works of other heat miners and so forth. And actually, I think we had some. I don't know if heat miners launched on Geyser, but we did have the OCX, a holistic solution for silent operation of brutal performance with a bit axe, emphasizing aesthetics, functionality, and innovation. So that is again, this is just individuals that are like in an open source way, just improving substantially the usability and performance of bit axes. Another one was the BitAxe School, learn open source mining, Bitcoin mining. We then had I think the solar powered solar powered
Solar bit, yep.
the thought of perpetual solar powered Bitcoin home mining. That's also pretty cool. The idea is, yeah, you basically you don't even have to plug it into your home uh, energy. You can if you're not in England, you can use your solar power to mine using a BitX. So that's super cool. And
How are
yeah, and
some
you
of
can
these
just
projects doing funding wise? Are they getting a lot of support, or are they kind of flying under the radar, or
yeah.
what's that looking like?
That's a good question. I think the solar bit, didn't do as well as expected, but I think it's still there, and they're at around $2,000. I think part of the problem is the solar nothing model that we really needed. That was a lot of the learnings about the importance of having sort of this target that you need to get to in order to make it happen. Um, but yeah, I think some others are like the OKX again raised $300. You have the BitX School around 50. So yeah, I think you're right. I think a lot of, and this is why I'm curious to come on here, because I think there's a big role for funding open source 3D printed alternative mining sort of BitX products, and now with all or nothing, you can you can do even more. You can do it even more successfully, because you can get to that minimum threshold you need to make something happen. When something is sort of in that sort of in between, you're not really sure. You're less likely to fund it because you don't know if it's gonna really happen. But now with this all or nothing, you can be sure that you're gonna get your money back if the goal is not reached. So really,
That's helpful.
yeah, really excited to see the sort of growth of the solo mining space on Geyser. And yeah, I could say we built this for the BitX community in some way, because we love the mission, where it's very much aligned with grassroots adoption, and it's really a question of making it easier to create projects, to fund them, and and help sort of sustain this really the innovation that is happening in the space.
Let's actually talk about onboarding like new creators, like a home miner or a dev with a great idea. Um, what is that process for them if they're sort of intimidated to pitch their idea out there on Geyser? Like, is there a filtering process, like an interview with you guys where you advise them, or is this just anybody can just sign up and launch? For people that have never explored Geyser, walk them through that process of both from like potential creator wanting to launch, and then from the consumer
Funder.
side as well.
Right. Good question. So the creator side is really straightforward, and the way that we decided to approach it at Geyser is that it actually goes live immediately. You can decide, you will be able to decide that the launch happens at a later date. You can schedule the launch itself, but actually you do go live right away, and we do in the back end just review that the project, is okay. And then if the project wants to, we can also get in touch and provide more marketing kind of support and provide feedback. That's something that we're looking to do even more of as well in the future. But yeah, basically we are yeah we're we can be as involved as the creator needs, but it's super super seamless to just put your idea there. The creation flow that we'll be launching with For the All or Nothing will give a lot of explainers and information on how to pitch your story, what information to add, and will guide the process even more. So it's really straightforward again, and the funds go into your wallet directly. And then for the contributor, it's also quite straightforward. You can fund the open campaign. You can just fund directly. You don't need to log in. You just fund, or you purchase something. And then when it comes to the what is it? When it comes to the All or Nothing, you will need to add a password, and the password will give you access to claiming the refund once the campaign is over. So it's really straightforward, really seamless UX on both sides. But I do know that there's a lot of pressure and sort of uncertainty on the creator if an idea is good enough. What I would always recommend is just create a project, uh, put it on draft, get people to give you the feedback, get them to um, yeah, get them to kind of like ruminate on the idea, get feedback from the community, improve the project, and then launch it. It's you want the launch. The launch is really important. You want the launch to be like to have confidence of the launch. You don't want to go into a launch with like, oh, I need to get more feedback with the launch. Yeah, you want to have like a good solid idea already sort of in place by the time you launch.
I can imagine you guys must have some great data on what works and what doesn't work at this point. What what does that look like for you as a company? Like, what do you collect in the sense of what metrics are you tracking and looking to understand more about, so that you on the consulting side later you can go and say, this really does work for these kinds of campaigns and this doesn't. Are you guys tracking anything in that regard? And can you give us a few suggestions and some things to avoid as to what makes a successful campaign?
Yeah, we collect as little as possible, but we do collect. So we do not collect IP addresses, but we collect, say, like where the funders are funding from, sort of the country as a whole. Um, there's a lot. It's a really good question because we have quite extensive data, even if it's aggregated. So in terms of what we know that works, I think a lot of the things we've already discussed, right? The more you post updates, the more likely you're to get funded. If you have a product reward, you're more likely to get funded. If you have a goal, you're also more likely to get funded. Um, you you can these things around trust, proof of work, and impact are really really critical. Regionally, the most funded region is South America so far. Then is North America, then is Europe, then it's Asia, and then it's Africa, I believe. 50% of all funding happens cross continent. So people are literally funding each other across continent, which is incredible. Um, yeah, it's a hard one because there's so much I could probably say. There's probably so much I still really don't know. There's a lot of Bitcoin products that are launching on Geyser that are really successful. Um,
I like
yeah,
what you
it's
said though about the first two. What one being that you continue to update, and I think that's where a
yeah,
lot of projects fall short. Is like, hey, donate to my Geyser campaign, but then it's empty inside in terms of like there's no continuous updating. It's just like someone's asking for your sats, but they're not telling you the story of what they're doing, right? And I find some of the most compelling ones, the ones that really call you to donate on to them, is the ones that are telling you week by week or month by month, whatever they can, to update you on what they've learned, what they've done, how they're using that money to push adoption, and what it's doing, emotionally or mentally or spiritually for some of these projects, to the community that they're using those donations in. And I think you see a lot of that in Africa. It's great. I love it. Like Bitcoin Chama, shout out to them. They are doing real proof of work. They're renting land, planting vegetables, growing honey, and then using those products to sell and then store their money in sats. They're over on Geyser. They're doing amazing work, and they're providing education classes to the community, from youth to elderly people, and teaching them about Bitcoin and why they need Bitcoin. And I think that's some of the best proof of work that I can point at. So continuing to update is a big one in my book for, okay, I want to be invested, not just financially in this project that I'm funding, but also the story of it, the changing of people's lives cross border, across the world, as you're sending sats to them. I think that might sound a little hippie of me, but it's really like the value of Bitcoin right there, is to see the good and the enriching factor that it can have in communities and in people's lives and their visions. So I like that one. More campaigns should tell a story. They should update people more frequently. And then two, I do really like the idea, and it doesn't surprise me that more campaigns get funded if they are offering some kind of reward, whether it be a small product or a handwritten letter or something. I think it goes a long way. That's not why you necessarily donate, but it can definitely be a deciding factor between project A and project B. On project A, I'm not getting anything necessarily from that donation, but on project B, if they reach this goal or you make this amount of a donation, you're getting a book from them, or you're getting a t-shirt or whatever. I think that's a really good way to entice people into wanting to be invested in it.
Yeah, great points, man. I agreed. And actually, I wrote them down because I think there's some insight there. Like, how do we get creators to post more, right? And post more videos, and as well. Yeah, definitely agree. That's really a key part of it, is telling the story and continuously celebrating wins, right? But yeah, love that. Love that. I think that's absolutely crucial. Um, yeah, I think that makes sense. Um,
Awesome. Could you imagine Geyser launching sort of a Bitcoin project boot camp to coach newbies on pitching their ideas, maybe mining or dev projects?
I love that. Yeah, that's been an idea from the very early days. Um, and yeah, there was also another interesting related idea, which is like a hackathon of ideas itself. So like you just focus on the best idea wins $1,000, and something like that. But yeah, I think, yeah, like a boot camp, 1 week boot camp, and ending with a pitch competition that wins $1,000. That would be super super cool. Um, yeah, it's something that we really should do. It's really a question of resources and, yeah, like making it happen. At the moment, it's more like, if you have a good idea, like you want to, like, we're focusing. Okay, you have an idea already. You already went through it, and then you launch. We then have this thing called a launchpad now, which is like, you launch, and then for 1 week you remain in a launchpad, and actually force you either to pay a small fee to kind of formally launch, or receive at least $210 in donations to become fully launched. And that's a way to separate the kind of the real projects that have launched from the sort of projects that are not really doing much, and to really force them to like work hard on that week. But then we're likely to kind of remove this altogether once we do the all or nothing, so that we can focus all more on the all or nothing. But yeah, I love your idea. If you have thoughts or idea or are interested in supporting that sort of boot camp, that would be really cool to do.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to have that kind of competitive spirit there, and also being so transparent and upfront with people. Like, here are your options. Here's what these people are building. What do you want to fund? And I think it could also be helpful because it's such a short duration thing, like let's say you did it over a weekend at a Bitcoin conference live, like a live Shark Tank for funding a project, or you do it over the course of a week, I think it just fits with the all or nothing kind of thing that you guys are launching as well, where those two might work well in tandem. People really get to see the idea in front of them and go, this was the most compelling, and decide to pitch into that. So that could be, you know, an idea for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's noted. Well, it's something that we'll have to explore.
Do you guys have any um, mechanisms, let's say, or any way of ensuring that any of these funds are used responsibly for these projects? I know they can span long periods of time once they're funded. You know, the money is directly peer to peer, so you're not escrowing it or anything like that. Is there anything you guys have in place for redundancies like that? Is it just to remove, like, deplatform and remove their access to funding, or does it go beyond that?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're not, as you mentioned, we're non-custodial, so we don't have direct responsibility on how the funds are like used. That's like to the onus of the creator. But if we do know that the funds are being misappropriated, misused, then we will take the project down if needed, because we want to protect our funders. There have been very few cases where like we've had to escalate to that. You know, first of all, we'll probably just reach out to the creator, make sure that, you know, their thoughts are heard and that they're, you know, planning. There was, I think, an example of a movie that raised quite a bit of money and it didn't really launch. And some of the funders reached out to us and said, like, you know, what happened? We don't really trust this person. And so I'd reach out and, you know, we'd clarify that the movie was, you know, eventually going to come out. Um, yeah, I think part of it, you know, the creator has to feel empowered by the community, has to remain in touch and provide transparency to the community. That's super, super important, right? Because things may change, right? And actually, the plan may change, and maybe the movie should go out actually the next year because there's a bull market, right? There should be some degree of flexibility the creator should have, but ultimately, it's like, you know, remain accountable to the community. And going forward into the future, there are ways that funds could be essentially uh, allocated upon certain, you know, milestones completion, right? Like maybe the funds actually are being received, but maybe they're locked up, and upon, I don't know, a group of people that get to, or the voters themselves, the funders themselves deciding that I think actually Angor was doing something like that for developers. It's like using Bitcoin DLCs, you know, but our take was more that we're kind of curious about using rootstock. Is just like a lot easier to build on, and can do all sorts of interesting different things. And it's so yeah, so maybe in the future something like that, right? Where it's like milestone based. So the funds are unlocked upon certain proof of work or impact, and you do have either a committee or uh, the project funders themselves that get to vote on when the funds are to be unlocked, right? Something like that. Um, but that's a little bit complex. Like that's really quite challenging,
It's a
and
lot more work.
it's a lot more work. It's really hard to get wrong, um, and ultimately, I still think it's a bit of an optimization. Ultimately, like if you believe in our project, you want to allow them to, and sometimes you actually do need the money to make it, you know, to actually go forward with the project. Uh,
I could see you funding something like I don't know, a transparency dashboard for campaigns where you like show real time sat usage. Do you think something like that could boost trust for projects and consumers all around? Like, basically, you show the wallet's linked, and it shows real time funds going in and out, and you'd you'd have a sort of a proof of work that way instead of needing to individually, you know, send vetters around or get votes from the whole community. This could show the community, yeah, this project is on track. They're still following along with what their goals were laid out in the pitch, and they're, this is where they allocated those funds, and they, you'd obviously have to rely on the creator of the campaign quite a lot, but that could be sort of a criterion for building trust.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, and it's possible technically you could use like Nostr Wallet Connect to, without in a non-custodial way, you could see the funds, being spent on different items. But that really only works in a world where Nostr Wallet Connect is like highly used,
Adopted. Yeah.
right? Highly adopted. So I could see that, becoming a thing in the future. Goodness. Um, uh, But like you will be surprised if I told you the person that was like really keen on doing that. And the answer is sometimes it's the least trusted people that want to showcase that there's total trustlessness. Like, like it's an interesting one because it that it it speaks to like the non-Bitcoiner philosophy of low trust. But again, it's one of those things where trust is important. Trust is a valuable thing if you have it, and if you're funding someone but you don't really trust them fully, so you need to check where each sats is going. Um, I just wonder if that's like there's something there. There's something there of value, but I guess the key insight that I still think is important is that trust is important rather than going through this roundabout way of creating a system where, no, I'm sorry, like that is the future. I do think that's the future. Like low trust everywhere. Where all the funds are being spent. Like that is the future. Um, but that doesn't replace trust either. Like ultimately, that goes towards showcasing the trust, and trust is important. Like I think like custodial Lightning wallets, like they work great, and there is a role for a platform like Blink or to be a trusted custodian that is liable if they do the wrong things. Um, so, well, I do think that the history, the trajectory of the world is towards like low trust. Although maybe that's not correct either. Maybe that just goes through ebbs and flows. Trust goes up and down. But I do think in terms of the next couple of decades, trust is gonna go down. So a tool like this one that ensures that you can fund them and that thing gets done even in a low trust environment. I think that's important. That's probably gonna happen. But ultimately, that's gonna be used to create trust in the person and therefore remove the need for it. It's like a double-edged sword, sort of like things that plays with each. It's an interesting dichotomous thing that plays together with it, right? Because it's like you want to use that to build trust, and then when you have trust, you don't really need that as much. And that's where I'm partly sorry, I'm a bit rambling, but the reason why I'm a little bit skeptical of it is because you can game it. You can always game it. You can always say like if you ultimately don't trust someone, that person, like if the person is really a non-trusted third party, well, they could always hack it. You can always hack trust. There's always that could happen, right?
I
So
just
yeah,
imagine they'd have to go to a whole lot of more work than it's worth to fake those kinds of transparency checks than it would be to just do the work, right? So
right.
it's a hurdle for bad actors, and I get exactly what you're saying. It is a bit of a catch-22. However, it's like you don't the reality is these are all trusted third parties that you don't know. Like maybe you directly have an interaction with somebody on Nostr or X, and you find out that they have a Geyser Fund campaign, and you want to fund them. Great, there's some level of trust. You're not really requiring from them like, oh, I need checks and balances. But the reality is you have amazing projects that people don't necessarily know the person behind it or the level of trust that they carry. Maybe in their own small local community, they're the most trusted cat around, but you don't know them because they don't have a big Twitter following or they're not actively loud on NOS or whatever. Maybe you still want to fund that work, but you'd like some
So much trust.
ability to build trust with a new person. And that
Right.
leads to the lack of need for trust over time. Like there needs to be a seed planted.
Right.
And then from there you can nurture that trust and then you have no problem, right? It's like when in my day job career, my business, when I'm working with somebody for the first time, I want to take 3 to 6 months worth of costs up front. I want that initial payment to be complete, not, oh yeah, you can go on 2-week payment plans or something like this. Now, if I've worked with you for 6 months or a year, yeah, there's that trust built in. So okay, if you need to do the next sessions in payment, no problem. But at the start, you just don't have that level of established trust with people, and so it's so much better to get that 3 months up front or that 6 months up front, sort of like that fixed goal that you guys are launching. I think that'll be, it will play nicely with all these sort of ideas that we're bouncing back and forth here.
Yeah, great idea. Great point that, it's the trust is hard, especially at the beginning when you have to cultivate the trust in the beginning, and you don't have it initially. A system that is more trustless could be incredibly powerful. Very good point.
Do you guys have, or maybe not you guys, do you, since you're the one with me here today, do you have any projects that really stuck out to you, really struck a chord with you? Maybe there was an underdog story, something like that, of a campaign that you saw that you personally wanted to see get funded. And can you tell us a bit about that?
That's right. I'm always really curious about just the projects that are completely unexpected. I think one that was really powerful to see was Bitcoin trading cards. I think that one launched on Geyser when nobody knew about it, launched just on Geyser and rallied up over $100,000 in a few months, just because like the idea was so powerful. The boxes, you could buy boxes of the Series 1 for less than $500. Now, if you had bought one of those on Geyser, now those would be worth um, 0.3 Bitcoin. With more $30,000 was worth one of those boxes today. So it's really crazy. It's really crazy the amount of success that they've had and the community they've created. And I'm really honored for them to have launched on Geyser. And then yeah, like these sort of all these circular economies are super interesting. I think that's really one of the most humbling things, just seeing how they're sprouting, they're mushrooming everywhere around the world. Um, those are really interesting. And yeah, like humanitarian projects in like fundraisers. Recently, Becca, a key part of Geyser from the very early days, she was diagnosed with cancer and is now raising on Geyser and did really well. And a lot of the funds are going to be used towards like the medication and the treatment. So these are the types of things where, yeah, like us Geyser being able to give back to the community. I something that I love these types of projects. Um, and yeah, I think just like the most unexpected things, if Tatum turn up that launched on Geyser and like 2, 3 years ago, when we just got started, with this idea of bringing Bitcoin comedy to Bitcoin. It's really hard to really pick, but there's so many great projects and great ideas that are helping to fuel Bitcoin adoption.
Yeah, I love hearing the variety of things that stand out, because everything means something different to everybody, right? And it's not everybody's going to be attracted or called to one sort of side of what's available on Geyser, but I think that's why it's such a great thing. You can go on there and just start scrolling projects, and before you know it, you're wrapped up in the development of this thing halfway across the world, and you're you're feeling inspired to help contribute to it. So that's, I love the wide variety of things. And one thing I talked with Murph's Life about was how a lot of people, they have all these sats and then they're like, oh, I'm gonna only sell or use them at a certain price, right? And he would always say to them, like, live a little. And then you see a lot of these people in some of um these more well established circular economies, they have friends in them dying with all their Bitcoin just going to waste. They weren't able to get to that, million a coin or whatever, 200,000 a coin when they were then going to spend it and help enrich the community and all of this stuff. So the point is, life is short and sweet and precious, and you don't know when you're going to go. And so it's great to hold your Bitcoin for your own personal reasons. It's also great to see where you can give a little bit back and help push this next wave in, because I can't think of anything worse than just dying with an account, a ledger full of sats, and not having actually brought any goodness into the world, when that invention that Satoshi gifted us, as you so rightly said earlier, blessed us. So why should we not be turning around and using what we can to bless other people? So I love that Geyser allows that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jack Mallers did his recent presentation around that's a little different about lending, but the similar concept applies where, you know, you've accumulated wealth. Um, Bitcoin is scarce, Bitcoin is valuable, but as your time progresses, your time on Earth is the most scarce thing in the world. Um, Even more like our time is more valuable than Bitcoin, no doubt about that, right? So, subjectively. So now the question is, how do we then transfer that Bitcoin, generationally? That's true. Is really, really important, and that's how we grow as a civilization. But also there is a role to, yeah, to like give back also to the community. That's I think that's a really important concept. This idea of like, yeah, giving back a small percentage of what you earned, and it's a concept that exists in Islam and some other religions, that a percentage of everything you've earned, you should give it back to the community. And I forget there's a name for it, but I think it might applies to Bitcoiners as well. And it's yeah, it's a really important concept. I think Brad Mills speaks that a lot. Sort of giving back. And I think it's a natural thing that will emerge as Bitcoiners end up seeing Bitcoin more and more, and their wealth goes up. They're gonna, understand the value of giving back. And there's actually, giving is something super empowering. Actually, it's a gift. Like, giving is a gift, because to give is a statement of power. It's a statement like, look how much I've made. Look, how right I was in so many things. Yeah, like it's a, and like, look at me now, being able to give back and um, give empowerment to others is incredibly beautiful, powerful thing that not everyone gets to do. Like, look at other people, non-Bitcoiners of our generation. Most of them are struggling, and they're not gonna be able to provide the same well-being that they receive to their own offspring. And there's nothing worse than that, right? Like, to know that, you know, it's like you've failed in some way, but really you've it's not you. It's like the system you're in has really kind of oppressed you, and made your life difficult, and made inequality so bad that you cannot make it, and not provide the same to your children.
Yes, your time horizons need to be a lot different when you're in this generation. But what is amazing and empowering is that this generation has found Bitcoin and is still really in the early days of what this is going to deliver to the world. And so it's just I think it's really empowering what Bitcoin does, because it teaches you about time preference, delaying gratification, and so many good principles overall. And I just think that that's really important for everybody to hone in on at an early age, so that they can get the full benefit of Bitcoin and use it for good in the world, and actually have an ability to make change.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Um, yeah, speaking of children, screaming in the background. Uh,
That's awesome.
but yeah, uh, yeah, man, it's been a great call. I do have to jump soon for another one, but it's love talking to you. You are a super user. I didn't know you had so many great insights. We should definitely do this again, and kind of provide, yeah, kind of continue getting your feedback, because it's been really valuable.
Oh, appreciate the time and conversation. And yeah, I've got at least another 30 minutes or so for you next time. So you'll have to come on for a round two. Yeah, we'll wrap it
Awesome.
up here so you can jump on to your next call. I would love if you could just tell everybody that's, learned something from this, that's maybe inspired to start giving to a Geyser Fund campaign. Where would they go to get in contact or learn more?
Right. So if you want to launch a project, just go on geyser.fund. If you want to discover more projects to support and to see what's going on in the Bitcoin space, the same, go on geyser.fund. You can also subscribe to our newsletter. You can do that directly on the website. And we provide, monthly updates on like new projects that are launching. And if you follow projects, you can then get updates on what's going on in terms of particular categories of projects. Keep in touch, follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on social medias, on Noster. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, if there's one takeaway, it's really that we all have a role to play. You know, uh, we all have a role to play either as funders, as project creators, um, and hopefully, guys, ends up being one of the tools you can use to make your ideas happen and to help push Bitcoin adoption forward.
I think you guys are doing a great job of that, and I'm excited to see how things continue to build and progress in the coming years. Mick, thanks for taking the time, man. It was a blast. Time just flew by. I'll let you jump on to your next call. Home miners, hope you enjoyed this one. Bit of a unique, different perspective for you guys. And don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and drop a comment and share this with somebody you know that is a creator, a dev. They've got a product they want to see funded. Get them on Geyser. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end of this episode. And if you were one of the smart and lucky few that did watch all the way through, we've got another SAT giveaway for you. So get your Lightning wallets ready. And the first person to scan the QR code will win the SATs from Bitcoin Well. We're going to toss another coin into the Bitcoin wishing well. And whoever scans this QR code first will walk away with 542 glorious sats. Good luck, and we'll see you on the next episode.